Good afternoon, good afternoon. Why Bach? Because I think that when we talk about complexity and we want to try to explain, we can't do it. There's no explanation to complexity. When we see the network, when we see what's going on, when we understand that it's just 18 years old, is still a teenager. So how can we face with complexity? Someone says, no, we are just monkeys that just descended a tree, so we cannot understand. It's just a matter of him, you know. So we as humans cannot understand complexity. Then I realized that in my relationship with Johann Sebastian Bach, and the cello suites in particular, I think I got a clue on what it means for a human being to understand, to be, not understanding, to be in relationship, to cope with complexity. So I will share with you my thoughts about it. So let's begin from how do we face complexity? When we face it, we have to have a model of interpretation. Last year, and again this year, we need some model. We need a way. So my first suggestion is, why don't we follow a different path? Why don't we forget about computers? We forget about bits and bytes and iPhones and this kind of crap. I mean, let's try another path. Let's try to search in other environments. And obviously music is one of those environments. I think that we can have a glimpse of it if we move ourselves from a technical aspect, from a technical approach, a rational approach to complexity, and we move into another realm, into another world, I should say. First of all, I'm not a musicologist, okay? I'm not even a musician. I'm a minstrel. I play. I'm like Paolo. No? We take the guitar and we play and we do it and we have fun. How many musicians do we have here, please? Okay, so you understand me. I use music simply because I was not good at math. I'm not good at chemistry. But I imagine every one of you can use a different metaphor or different set of metaphors. So I just use music, and I don't want to say that this is the only way you can deal with complexity. But why Bach? Why Johnny? Because he liked the intellectual challenges. You know, he loved to play with the instruments he had. And he has inserted into his music mysteries and enigmas. And one of the nicest is the musical offering. You know, he was playing with the emperor, and the emperor said, Mr. Bach, why don't you try to make a fugue on these 11 notes? And he put a sequence of notes that not a human being could possibly deal with. And Johann Sebastian finally had food for his brain and immediately wrote a two-voice fugue right immediately. Then he went back home and he transformed those 11 notes into every possible change imaginable and reverted in ups and downs. And then he wrote the score, and he gave it back to the emperor and said, humbly, Majesty, this is Regis Ius Sucantio et Reliqua Canonica Ars Resoluta. I did it all I could with this stuff. But if you read it, it's ricercar. So he loved these kind of things. He loved doing these kind of things. And I imagine you know Gödel Bach from Ostetter that talks about that. But let's talk about the cello suites. Those cello suites are composed between 1717 and 1723. So it's a 5-year span. So it's not something that he woke up one morning and said, I got something in my ear, taking the shower. They took the shower too at the time. Actually, I don't know. But anyhow, so in 5 years, a brain like that did something on purpose, did something that he really wanted to do. And it's also something that tells us about 5 years of one of the absolute geniuses of music, about his mood, about his way of looking at stuff. There is not an original score. They've been transcribed by his second wife. Someone said, no, this is too beautiful, this is too magnificent, it must be done by a woman. Do women agree with me? Might be. But anyhow, we the machos say, no, women don't do this kind of thing. This is real stuff. So it must be Johann Sebastian work. The interesting is that they disappeared. For 250 years, nobody knew that Johann Sebastian Bach had written music for cello. You know, he didn't play the cello, actually. He played the violin, he played the organ, and so he wrote fantastic music, but nothing for cello. So, can you imagine the surprise when Pau Casals, probably one of the top cellists in last century, was walking in the Ramblas with his father, and they went to a flea market, and he browsed into scores, and he saw cello suites Bach. He said, no, it's not possible. There are no cello scores from Bach. And he asked his father to buy it. And he went back home, and he started looking at it and trying to play. And geez, that was something. He studied 25 years this score before daring to play it in public, because he realized what a kind of thing he had in his hands. Something that, was too big to imagine. And he did the first recording in 1936. So, the first thing I want you to understand is that, mi dai un po' di volume, is that music, go, up, all right? When you play, when you listen to the music, there is time in music. In the Renaissance, there was no beat. There was the tactus. The rhythm was done by the pulse of the player. There's nothing you can do about it. We can learn how to read fast. We can even have skate rollers and go to the Louvre. Hey, imagine, okay, I'm in a hurry, the Japanese, you run through the Louvre and say, okay, done it, okay, let's go to Venice. It's a problem with rollers in Venice, so please don't do that. But with music, you cannot. It's impossible. Music forces you to the time. So you better sit, take your time. If you want to listen to the 9th of Beethoven or to the 3rd of Mahler, take your time. There's no way you can get out of it before an hour and a half. So, this is important because this is my first thought. My first thought is that there is a role of silence. Why the conductor on the podium does this? It's not because he thinks he's God or Jesus, Simply because he wants to mark a before and after. There is a before, people chatting, blah, blah, blah. Then the director enters, blah, 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 and he does like this. And not only the musician stop talking and stop chatting, and even the public stop using their iPhones and so. There is a magic, fantastic moment that is the door to another environment, to another realm. So what happens really is that you have to clear your brain from prejudgment. And I recommend all of you, do this when you enter the door of a customer. Forget what you know. Stop thinking and let the situation to tell you what's going on. When you face complex system, stop thinking. Make the silence. Enter into the new realm. And let the environment talk to you. So, for the one who do not know Bach cello suites, there are 6 suites. Everyone is made in 6 different dances or sections, but let's say there are dances or movements. So it's 36 in total. Actually, my real presentation was 36 slides because I'm freak, because talking about Bach, you have to do it, but I don't have the time here to do it. So I cut them, but usually if you respect, you have to do this presentation in 36 slides. And they seems to be the same. So all the 6 have a prelude, an opening movement. All of them, they have an allemande, which is a dance baroque in 2. It means ti-ta, ti-ta. And then there is a courante, which is a French dance courante, because it was then really running like crazy all around, chasing the girls. Wow! This was the courante, and it's in 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. This is it. And then there's the sarabande. When I first thought a sarabande, what do you think? What do you think is a sarabande? Sarabande. Oh, it's a sarabande. No, sarabande is the slowest possible movement that was even banned by the church because it was too sensual. And so they say, no, there is a devil under the sarabande. And then there is the galanterie. The galanterie is a fancy dance, and it's a minuet in the first 2, a bourrée in the second 2, and the gavotte in the last 2. And then the jig. The jig, you know, it's an Irish type of dance. So the suites have a structure. And you say, okay, thank you, Mr. Bach. We don't have complexity. We have a clear statement. And then you realize that it does tricky things with tonality, but I don't want to bother you with that. So, il hai volume? I saw Mario Brunello, one of the top Italian cellists, used to play the suites on the Dolomites or even on Mount Fuji. Why? There are concert halls, there are churches. Why do you go to, and the poor Japanese that followed him up there, you know? And this is the Maggini, 1603 cello, 400 years old. $1.5 million worth of instrument up to the Fuji Mountain. Why? He said, because there is a need to expand this music. It cannot stand in a room. It has to stretch in the space. And if you follow one day Mario Brunello playing on the Dolomites, you'll understand why there is crazy people that wakes up at 4 in the morning and goes up to Dolomites waiting for the sun to come out, and then he plays, and then you'll understand, I think. But I want you to know that this is Mstislav Rostropovich. Why? He was in London. He heard about the Berlin Wall to collapse. He decided he had to be there. He took his multi-million-dollar cello, went to the airport, got the first flight to Berlin. It was a mess. There was no taxi. So he went to the Berlin Wall on a scooter with someone. Can you imagine this old man with the cello on his back on a scooter going to the Berlin Wall collapsing, and there was no chair, so he just asked a lady, can you give me a chair? So he sat there, and he decided to play all the suites in major tonality. And when they asked me, why are you doing that? Because there is only one music on earth that can celebrate such an event. And I think that when you hear this, you have to ask yourself, why? What is in this music? This is what I want to try to share with you. What is in this music? I want you just to do a 5-minute experiment, because I want you to listen to 4 different generations of cellists. The first is the boss, Pau Casals. Fantastic story. Dai volume. Su, su, su. I want you to hear the scratching. It's an old recording. Same piece, but another generation, Rostropovich. Listen to the difference. More round. Then a 3rd generation cellist, Misha Maisky, Russian. Same music, same score, different. But I want you to pay attention to this young Chinese guy that lives in Zurich. And he's recording in a little church. But it's this huge music. It's inside. Yes, there is the score. This is my Mac playing. So when they say, I do the music with the Mac, I do with GarageBand. Okay, let's talk about it. Okay? Yes, because music is not just a score, it's not just the notes. Like the internet is not just the maps, it's not just Google, it's not just Facebook, it's not just Akamai and whatever. Okay? Even if similar, a little change changes everything. We have heard Pau Casals with a poor recording technology and the new Swiss guy doing something miraculous. We have listened to different instruments, different players, different cultures. Everything changes. Why? Because there is a musician. Because the musician extracts the magic. This morning we heard Dave Snowden say, we have to extract humanity from the internet, from the network. So this is the role of the musician. And so this is my second thought. This happens too with technology. Each element changes the whole. So, and not only, if you change an element, thing changes, then you change again the element, the thing changes differently. Because there are human beings in it. There is us and you. And the player and the instrument. And Johann Sebastian Bach still there. So, this is just a special message to the information technology developers. They think that the computers are ones and zeros, and the corporations are ones and zeros too. So you develop an application, it worked in this customer. No worry, Mr. Customer, I install it here. It's going to work beautifully. Crash. You know it? Yeah, I do. There are hundreds of versions or executions of the cello suites. Why? Because every cello player has recorded, are really the book. And my wife keeps on saying, why do you buy another? You have already 12. You know? I don't have 12 albums from the Beatles, but I have just saw the Feltrinelli in Milano Central Station, new edition, and I want the 13th, because they're different. Because if you listen to one of my favorite, which is Antonio Menezes, he's Brazilian. And Brazilian has nothing to do with Germans. You probably know this. Okay? But there is something Brazilian in his way to play Bach. And so I find that the net result of this is a complex system. You have 6 suites, 6 modules, 3 variables, just to take the first one, the instrument, the recording, the environment. Then you have many different performances, so we have 108 times P, and then you and me, the listeners. So we have a tremendous, and then there is the mood, and then there is the weather outside that changes, the humidity changes, the vibration. So, I mean, it's something that is really a complex system. We touch, we feel, we listen, we are into. When I talk about this, I say, yeah, but network is different. Network is 1 and 0 on steroids, but it's still ones and zeros. And I say, yes, but when people talk about millions of computers, and millions of users on Facebook, and billions of cell phones, and gazillions of... Do you really have a clue of what we are talking about? When something shows you a business card, we say, responsible for the internet policy. Responsible? Are you insane? Who are you? Superman, Batman, all together? I mean, if we have a clue of what we're talking about, we cannot say we will understand this. Not in standard form. So this is why I'm saying, and this is my third thought. When you apply technology to the enterprise, when you talk about a network, remember, there is a uniqueness every time. You have to understand the context. You have to understand the people. Talk to the people. Stay silent, listen. Linear thinking doesn't work. Linear thinking doesn't work when you deal with technology today and the enterprise. Remember that Bach, because the standard solution not always apply, for the 5th suite, he imagined a different tuning of the cello. And sometimes the existing tools are not enough. So he imagined that for the 6th suite, he imagined a 5-string cello. Because he said, I want that. But there is not a 5-string cello. So what? Build one. This is the way. We tend to take enterprise and adapt to SAP. Okay? Disaster. So, when we talk about complexity, we have to understand that the complexity grows, but our comprehension doesn't grow accordingly. So the gap is bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. We cannot stand that. And he's just 18 years old. Can you imagine when he's going to be major, when the network's going to marry, when he's going to have babies? Terrifying. You know? So we need mental models in order to cope with it. We need desperately those models. And the problem, even with the suite, is there is no authentic version. No one can claim, I know what the internet is. No one can say, I know what Bach means. There is no. There are, unfortunately, sad news that Johann Sebastian Bach is no longer with us. There is no recording. And Leonardo says that music dies just after the last note. But then, like the phoenix, starts over again. So every time in music there is a rebirth. And it's difficult to capture. So I say, when you feel you want to try to visualize the multiplicity, try to have an inner image of the complexity. You need to see to understand. You have to figure out. When I say millions of computers, it's just a number. How many zeros? Again, Leonardo says, if you want to portrayed invisible use music. Music is the supreme art to describe the invisible. And I said, I cannot go to State of the Net and they, please, can you sing me Google? Can you sing Google? Can you describe with the music what the network is? Probably you think I'm crazy. Yes. No, in the sense that I'm crazy, but I mean. Then I was in Australia. I did something very interesting there. And I was looking at this. While we, the Western, the smart, the rationals, are moving from the Mercator maps up to Google Earth, because we think we can describe the planet. Aborigines 30,000 years ago were singing the land. Can you sing the land? Try it. If you don't believe that they had a clue 30,000 years ago, that if you want to talk about something so complex like the land, you better use different tools than words, than other things. Sing. Ha! Well, I want you just to try a little experiment, because I have to run like a crazy. Yes, 25. Benissimo. I want you to listen to the same piece played by 3 different players. One is, again, the boss. It's like a really a minuet. You can imagine the... Okay. And then there is Yo-Yo Ma. So oriental, so round. Every note is tied to the other, like skate roll, like ice skater, like he did. But then there is one of my favorites for this piece, and is the Misha Maisky. Can you hear the difference? You hear the difference? You haven't heard any. This is the CD. Completely different. And he even strikes against the cello. It hurts. Scrap. He's Russian. The result of passion. Listen now. Why? Why such a big difference? Because it's different emotions. Emotions in them, but emotion in you. And even in me, that prepared those images to help you to figure out. So, why emotion is important? Because we don't know anything about Bach emotions. But emotion implies relationship, and this is what all we are talking about. Relationship. Facebook is not just a fact that people share, stupid things. There is something magic. There is people who wants to interact, to share emotion. When this happens, something magic and unpredictable happens. So, dealing with this, dealing with technology, dealing with complexity, dealing with the internet implies new disciplines. I was there at the time when we started all this, and I remember that it was, okay, ones and zeros. So, certification. Let's certify you are an expert X. You are a Cisco, you are a Novell, you are a Microsoft system expert XYZ. Gold, platinum, and then we invented all this crap, Then we realized that we need anthropologists, biologists, astrophysical, singers, painters, architects, poets, to understand what we're talking about. I don't want to say that techne has disappeared. Competence is mandatory. I don't want to be surged one day by a doctor that is an artist. Okay, I want a good doctor, okay? I want a good surgeon. But knowledge opens us and brings us to spaces and open doors that are initially obscure. But it is the eyes that must adapt to obscurity, not pretend to turn the light on. There is no light to turn on. You have to change. You have to change the way you put yourself in front of complexity, the way you adapt to the obscurity. And you'll discover that your eyes will do a real fine job. So, stop number five, please. Don't limit yourself to the brain. You have it, it's free, use it. There are many, many other occasions in which you don't use it, and you better do. But when you face complexity, remember, there is not just one vibration. There are infinite vibrations that you have to try to perceive. So, okay. When I sold my company and I decided to return doing what I really love, which is music, I decided to play the cello. Many of you already know that. And because I'm a rational, I said, okay, easy. I'll buy the manual, I'll study it, and I play. So what? Easy. Control C, Control V. I've done it so many times, okay? And then I took the first suite. I said, okay, it's easy. This is my real score. No, I can't do it. So I said, the second is slower. I could not go over measure 11. So I said, okay, I'm a beginner. Forget about it. Let's go back to the first. This is it. Yes, at the beginning, but then it becomes so complex, I said, no, I can't do that. But my wife liked the end of it. So I played the first piece, I skipped the middle. No, like when you have a sandwich, you don't like the sausage, you take the sausage off and you eat it. I tried to do that with Bach, but Bach was not happy because it doesn't sound like the prelude of the first. Okay? Because this is what my life loved. Listen. Okay, then I decide, okay, Mr. Bach, let's take the easiest one, which is for me the bourrée of the third. And I started studying it 7 years ago with my teacher, beat by beat, bar by bar, note by note, marking and trying to discover all the mystery, disassembling it and reassembling it and executing. And every time I don't do it for a week, I have to start over again. It's a Sisyphus. I mean, why? Because when you get to the point that you do it, it's like when you go up to my Dolomites in Sesto. Why you sweat the hell of you, and then you are at the Comici hut. And so, why, yes. If someone did it that probably understand what I'm talking about. So, now, 7 years, there is a dream. After all, there is a dream. I know I will play, and I hope some of you will be still alive in order to come and listen to my performance, because it's going to just take a while, but I know I'm going to do it. And so this is my final thought. Complexity is not scary. People want to rationalize because they are scared. And I say, there's nothing scary about complexity. There is beauty. And beauty is not scary. So, and it's never ending. And when you are in that realm, you discover that it's an ever-changing mystery. But my real recommendation is, do like me. Be brave enough. After listening, play your own version of the suite. Okay, I hope you like my point of view. And my real final recommendation is, listen to the suites. I don't know if you will have the same experience I had, but at least you have listened to something absolutely great, some great music. Thank you. Grazie.